guys, welcome to Podcast Fandom Premium. I'm your host, Nina.
And I'm Tom.
And we are back to start a brand new show. We're going to be talking about the Mayfair Witches, which is a new original series streaming on AMC. It is another Anne Rice adaptation. It is part of the, what are they calling it? Immortal Universe?
The Anne Rice MCU.
Yes, the Anne Rice MCU. So we had, I think, a pretty perfect season, almost perfect season of television with the first season of Interview with the Vampire. Easily one of my top 3 shows of 2022, or new shows, I should say, and kick things off. And there was a brief mention of the Mayfair family in the first episode, I believe, of Interview with the Vampire. So it already, it establishes that this takes place also primarily in New Orleans. And again, it is based off of another series of books by the same name written by Anne Rice. I know for a fact that I at least attempted to read this series. I don't remember a fucking thing about it other than it's witches and it's New Orleans. That's it. I didn't know anything. So I went into this super cold, again, even though I am pretty sure I attempted to read this series as I had gone through a pretty intense Anne Rice reading phase. But absolutely, if I finished one book, I'd be surprised. Like, I remember absolutely nothing. What did you know about
I knew
this?
Nothing.
Also, like Jon Snow.
Absolutely zero, nothing.
Okay.
Other than the title.
Okay. And I mistakenly had on our schedule that we were going to be talking about 2 episodes, but we're actually going to only be talking about 1 because that's all that was available. I don't know why I thought there would be 2. So we're going to get into that. But also, before we do that, because this is the first episode of the series, I will be putting this up on the free channel. So it's a good time to talk about just a few things as related to the podcast and the website and stuff, because hopefully everyone will hear this. So a couple of things. We had some microphone issues, computer issues. Like, honestly, I really feel like between now and like the next 6 months, we're probably going to have to buy at least 3 new electronics between the 3 of us in this house because of things, just not working anymore. And so we had some issues, and anything that involved Donnie, because of that, and one other thing I'll get to in a second, anything that involved Donnie in terms of podcasts, I had to push off a couple of days. So we have not yet done the finale of Alice in Borderland, which I'm dying to talk about. And so we'll probably get to that sometime this weekend. And and the other thing is because Donnie started a new job. So round of applause. And he's a businessman now. He's an office man. So, and it was kind of fast, right? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'll wait until we record with John, to kind of talk about like how fast I feel like it all happened. It was just like, yeah, and I start tomorrow. So, because of that, with him now not being in the house during the day, it cuts into our recording time. So I had to shift some stuff around, and what it's probably going to end up looking like is like a shit ton of podcasts being dropped this weekend, and as much as a head recording as I can do with Donnie this weekend, I'm going to try to do as well, so it doesn't affect next week and beyond. So there's that. Speaking of free podcasts and what we are covering currently, up for free. Like I said, you'll be listening to this, but regularly, we just finished Extraordinary Attorney Woo, and our next K-drama is called Flower of Evil. So that will be hitting the feed fairly soon. Probably early next week. I'm off the top of my head trying to remember what the calendar looks like. And then what was the other thing? Oh, Alice in Borderland, the second season. You heard me mention we still haven't recorded the finale for that, but that's because if you are a premium subscriber, you have weeks early access to us talking about that. So for instance, if you are a time travel subscriber, in the next couple of days, you will hear us talk about the finale. Free folks just got the first episode. And I feel like there's one more and I'm drawing a blank on it. Oh, Ranking of Kings. We took a break from that for like a week or two because of the holidays and John was traveling. But we are now back recording that regularly. And again, if you're premium, you get early access to that. Speaking of premium, one last note in terms of new shows joining the lineup. The Last of Us begins this weekend on HBO. It is another live action adaptation, this time of a video game, and it stars Pedro Pascal in the lead role there. I know nothing about it. I believe it's like post-apocalyptic, but that's all I know. And we're going to be covering that, and what we want to do is do live video reactions. So the first time we watch it, record our reactions to that for our time travel tier subscribers. We were doing some test recordings when we first watched that Alice in Borderland finale. We were going to do another test recording with the episode of the Mayfair Witches, which we're about to talk about, but we didn't get around to it because of the computer issues I mentioned before. So we're cutting it a little close. Hopefully we'll get it together because like I said, The Last of Us debuts this weekend, this Sunday, which I believe is like the 16th, I think, 15th. So, we have that on tap, but if you are a premium subscriber, not time travel tier, you will be getting weekly podcast reactions of that. And I believe John is joining us for that. Finally, there's a show called Kaleidoscope, which I may have mentioned on other podcasts. It's on Netflix. It is an 8-episode series starring Giancarlo Esposito, and it is designed so that you could watch any of the first 7 episodes in any order and then watch the finale, episode 8, and it makes sense. So we are testing that by watching it in 3 different orders. I'm watching one, John's watching another, Donnie yet another, and then we're going to record one podcast at the end of this month talking about the series. So if you are interested in that and following along, you have a few weeks to watch it. Like I said, it's 8 episodes. It's on Netflix. It's called Kaleidoscope. And as always with that and everything that we cover, if you want to join the conversation, make sure you send emails to feedback@projectfandom.com. Put the show you're talking about, maybe the episode title and the subject line, and I will read it on the podcast. So I think that's it. I think that got rid of all the show business stuff. Now we could talk about this. So what did you think of this episode? Because we watched this separately.
Yeah.
I posted a little, not like, an unofficial live thread, just posted in our Facebook group saying, hey guys, I'm watching this. Let's see if it sucks. And a little mini combo started, but I couldn't really get a feel for how you felt about it. So what did you think?
It was good, not great.
Okay.
There is some nitpicky things I had with it. I do feel like they should have dropped 2 episodes. Looking at I don't know if you watched the previews at the end of this episode.
Yes, I did.
What's going to happen? And I was like, okay, that shit's interesting.
But you notice it was like over the course of the season. Right.
Yeah. But that stuff's interesting. I felt like this episode, there's some stuff I think they could have done better, but it was kind of drawing out a lot of stuff, and then some stuff was to me was slow and then fast and then slow, so like the pacing was kind of off for me. So it kind of threw me off, if that makes any sense.
No, I gotcha. Yeah, I agree. I thought that it would have been better with another episode to just kind of, it kind of got your interest a little at the end with the kind of twist, but not really twist. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this is where we're going with this. And then I feel like it needed more. It should have showed you a little bit more, because as it stands now, this isn't something I'd be like, oh, can't wait for Sunday. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So yeah, but it's, I'm gonna give it a go, because interestingly though, wait a minute, let me think. So interestingly enough, before Interview with the Vampire premiered, like a few days before it premiered, maybe even as much as a whole ass week before, they announced the second season. The most kind of, I would say, fanfare that I've seen around this, it was announced that it was going to be simulcast the night that it dropped, like that first episode, like basically on anything AMC has access to broadcast on around the world, it was being broadcast. So it kind of felt like, they have some faith in it, right? They're trying to get as many eyes on it as possible. But as far as I know, again, this is part of this kind of bigger created universe by Anne Rice. As far as I know, though, this hasn't been picked up yet. So, interested to see how that goes, like what kind of faith they seem to have in it. But as it stands now, yeah, interesting, but not, this wasn't enough for me, again, to be like, oh my God, I can't wait for next Sunday. Right. Okay, so let's talk about this. Give me a second. Let me call Kaylee in here. So I put my glasses on because I was like, what is that on the floor? Because I know if this dog pooped on my floor, Lord Jesus, y'all don't want to hear me get good and ratchet on this podcast. Okay. So the first episode is called The Witching Hour. Let's talk about who's in this. Look at me not knowing how to say this girl's name. Is it
Alexandra Daddario or something like that?
Yeah, close. Yeah. What's that on my floor? Don't ask me why I got super.
Where?
That dark thing you looking at. Yeah. What is that? It's not poop, is it? Okay, because you're picking it up.
Yes, it's poop.
She picked it up. She's twirling in her hands, and I'm like, it's not poop, is it? What is it? It's something that shouldn't be on the floor. This is something to do with Donnie. It says DeWalt. Here. That's a
that was on your bookshelf. That was a strap on one of the charging cords.
I thought you said it was a strap on. I was like, what? Thank you, Kaylee.
I mean, if you got strap on in there.
Call your dog, please, so he can get out of here. We're about to talk about this episode. He's panting in my mic. Go to Kaylee. Come here. Okay, so the cast, everybody's like, this is not what we paid for. Don't worry, yes, this one is free. Alexandra Daddario. Right. She plays Rowan Fielding. That's the lead. We have Jack Huston as Lasher. Tongai Charissa as Cyprian Grieve, which I love that name, by the way. I was like, okay, Anne Rice.
Is that the black guy?
Yes. Harry Hamlin as Cortland Mayfair. And Beth Grant as Carlotta Mayfair. That would be the auntie. And then we have Deirdre, as we learn later by the end of the episode, as a woman in her 40s, played by Annabeth Gish. Young Deirdre.
Who's the bartender? Because he looks familiar as fuck.
What bartender?
The one she sleeps with.
Oh, good question. What was his name? Max? Hold on.
Because when I saw him, I was like, I've seen him before.
Yeah, so did I. Felt he was very, very familiar as well. Hold on. Let's see. There's somebody in the show called Ma Bell, but then again, it is New Orleans. I know. Oh my God, I gotta look up what that guy was in when we talk about him. This guy was a dick too. There's a lot of guys who are just dicks in this. Why am I not seeing Max? That was his name, right? Oh, here we are. Jordan Cox. What else has he been in? CSI Vegas. Oh my God, do you know who he is?
Tell me.
He is the abusive baby daddy in P-Valley. The only white man on the show.
Okay, that makes sense. I was like, I know I've seen this.
Yeah. That's where we know him from. Yeah, because everything else we haven't seen. I'm looking through. Okay. So anyway, like I said, the lead is Rowan Fielding. She is a neurosurgeon, right? And hold on a second. Let me get my notes back open. Okay, but wait, before we talk about that, because it does begin with something I was like, I wasn't sure like where this was, but there's a woman in New Orleans who is under the care of like, she has a housekeeper and this older woman who watches after her, and she receives an in-home doctor's visit and it's a new doctor, new to her, to give her a Thorazine shot. What is Thorazine? Let's look this up.
So this was confusing to me because oh
my God,
the
my
way
dog
it was
is
set,
humping his dog. So if you hear panting in the background, I am so embarrassed. I am so sorry, y'all. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead, Tony.
But the setting it reminded me of like old times, like old Orleans, like this is the 20s or 30s. Like
I think you just got to go to New Orleans. I feel like that's. I feel like that's a part of the charm of certain parts of the city.
But having to call it home doctor, the housekeeper,
that's money. That's not
even when he went to read the doctor's notes, he pulls out this old, like it just everything to me. It seemed really old, and I was like, but
fair.
She's 47. Like I couldn't tell like what time it was, but I'm just like, okay, she's 47. How old is her daughter? Because I don't know, because I'm guessing the mother. I don't know if she's dead yet or she's still alive because they haven't really said yet. Her mother.
She's alive.
Okay, that's what I thought. Like this is current times, right?
Yeah, and see that's the thing. Where it starts is, I'm assuming present day, and then when it goes back, it does it through her eyes, which are very blue, and then we are with Rowan, who you are assuming is also present day, right? Like at least fairly recent. So it threw me because I thought they were telling us that. So what we saw of this is how Rowan ends up. Is what I thought at first.
Oh, okay.
Because they put back, because what happens is, let me just say, the Thorazine is given to treat schizophrenia, right? And psychotic disorders. And the doctor is confused because, again, like I said, she's a new patient for him, and he expected somebody older because of the file, like the care and the shot and all this stuff, right? So he expected somebody older, and the maid tells him, she's 47. And he seems to, we'll talk about it more later, but it's coming off right now that he has medical concerns, right? About why a woman of her age is just basically catatonic and receiving these very serious drugs. So he wants to go inside and go over her file first, right? So when he starts snooping around the office, right, and he looks outside and he sees a man talking to her. When he goes back out, the man is gone, right?
Right.
And he says to her, he asks the maid, who is that man? And she goes, what man? So then when he asks to be with her alone and he says, what happened to you? Then it goes back. That's when we push into Rowan. So I thought, we're going to learn how she ended up in this state. And I thought it was interesting that they had cast another actress instead of just like aging her up, and then such a well-known actress as Annabeth Gish.
Right.
But now I see that then when the first time we meet Deirdre, that's her past, not Rowan's past. Does that make sense? Like,
yes. Yeah,
so then
I
I understood. That. Yeah.
But it just, the costume design and it threw the time off for me. It didn't look modern to me. So that I was like, New Orleans isn't this out of date, are they? But
wait, at what point are you talking about though? When
at the beginning,
Deirdre, or right here with the doctor?
Right here with the doctor. It just seemed, everything about it just, it made me think of back at the Interview with the Vampire time.
Okay. So like the 20s and stuff.
Right.
Okay.
That's just the aesthetics and everything. I was like, hey, I guess.
I think it's just supposed to be the old money of it all.
I guess.
The whole.
But even him pulling out the magnifying glass, looking at the
gothic money of it all.
It was like, this is just like, where's his computer? Like, what? They don't have technology here.
Is Nico with you now?
Yes, and now he's growling at me.
Right, Kaylee, and tell her to come and get him. Okay, so when we go back, so then we meet Rowan, and she is, I think, a pediatric surgeon specifically, and she lives on a boat, and she has this boss, I guess, like the head of her department at the hospital, who's a bit of a dick. Oh no, he's very much a dick. His name is Keck, and we know that she's adopted. And her adoptive mother is black and played by, I'm trying to pull up her name because I can't believe I am.
She looks familiar too.
Erica Gimple, that's it. Well, I mean, she's been in like everything. She was Coco in Fame. Like, Nico.
Right?
Irene Cara was her in the movie, but she played her, I think, in the TV series. And Irene Cara just passed away a few weeks ago. What else have we seen her in? Oh my gosh, she's been in so much stuff. But yeah, she plays her adoptive mother. I think that's how you say it. And we learned that apparently she's having a cancer relapse. Her cancer is returned, right? When she learns that her mother's cancer is back, she wants to take up another job. She doesn't want to quit her job, but she wants to apply for this research position at this company
so that she can get her mother.
So she can get her.
I felt like her mother really progressed fast. Like,
yeah, right. Like, I don't even know.
She comes to visit her on the boat. She seemed fine. She's walking around, she's smiling and all this, and then next thing you know, she's like on her deathbed. I was like, what the fuck?
Right. And I don't know if if that was just supposed to tell us that like some time had passed, like a few weeks or something. I don't know. I'm going to kill this dog. But yeah, I agree. And when she goes to, like, as a courtesy, ask Keck's like permission and to maybe make an introduction to the head of this company doing all this genetic research that has this trial, he's an asshole about it. And as he is berating her, she kind of literally like kind of sees into his brain and imagines some artery or something in his brain bursting, and it happens. And I was like, wow, that's awesome.
That doctor was such a dick.
For no, like him and the other guy.
Yeah, both of them.
Both of them. I was like, wow.
But this guy just...
Yeah. He was so... I was like, yeah.
She's like, can't you just put in... He's like, why would I do that?
Yeah. He's like, you know what it is. Like, you just... You can't hide it. It's clear you think you're always right and that you're superior. And it's like, well... It ain't her fault. She's smart.
She came in there. She's like, the boy wanted to play video games. She's like, didn't you tell him he can't play video games anymore? I was like, what?
So then we go back in time, right? So at least, how old would you say Rowan is? In her 30s, late 20s, early 30s?
She's got to be. I mean, if her mother's 47, I would assume she's probably 27. So okay. Or 20. She's. I would say just under 30 is what they're probably telling us she is. If the mother's 47, I don't know how she looks young in the past. Right. So I was like, okay, maybe she's about 17, 18 years old here at the party. This is where she gets pregnant, is at the party.
Yeah, hold on a second. Okay. Alexandra Daddario's in her 30s. All right. I was curious. So, yeah, I guess we're to assume she's like a at the very least late teen, right? When she had her, right?
Right.
Okay, so her name is Deirdre, and she's in confession. And you know what I wonder? No, never mind. Those priests are dead. Lestat killed them. Never mind. And the time doesn't line up. I'm just curious if we're going to get any Interview with the Vampire connections the way we got with the other show.
Well,
in
yeah,
reverse.
I was thinking about that too, and I was just thinking about the time, like current time. Obviously, they're in Dubai, and we're here in whatever city she's in.
But then if you go back,
just even to
30
the
years
stuff,
to
right. They would have been over in Europe or something, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so so she's in confession, and you pick up here in this conversation that she has had this. I feel like the priest treated it as, but considering the priest seems to know what the family is in the situation, maybe he wasn't treating it as an imaginary friend, but that she had this man that appears to her ever since she was a child. But she tells the priest here that she hasn't seen him in a while. So it kind of played like when a kid has an imaginary friend and they're like, oh yeah, I haven't thought about that in years. That type, like she was outgrowing it. Mm-hmm. But then he is there in her room, and he talks about her mother, and she lives with her aunt who's really, really strict. And he talks about how her mother, when her mother was Deirdre's age, used to sneak out the window and go to a party at Uncle Carlton, I think that's his name, house, because he was always having a party. Mm-hmm. So that's what she does, even putting on one of her mother's dresses. And Uncle Carlton is weird and creepy.
Yes.
Right? Cortland, that's his name.
He picked out the guy to sleep with her.
That was like, oh my God. Okay, but we're skipping ahead a little bit. Okay, so Rowan tells her mom what she thinks she did to the man who's he's not dead, right?
He was in the intensive care. He was alive, but he was in the intensive care or whatever.
And she's like, if I look at his file and it says that this is what happened, then like I know I did it. And her mom is just like, girl, shut up. And I knew her mom, she doesn't say it like that though, but I knew her mom knew more than she knew when she said something like, I don't need this right now. Like, you're supposed to be here to comfort me. Because she does it twice. Once she's just like in bed, like trying to rest. And then she does it another time when her mom's getting chemo. And like the way her mom treated her that first time, I was just like, she knows more than she's saying. And then Rowan brings up the fact that because she's adopted, she doesn't know her genealogical history. And she's like, if you could help me. And then the mom is really kind of forceful. Like, I've tried already. I've done everything. It's a sealed adoption. Like, you know, it just felt, I was like, oh, she knows something.
Right.
I wasn't expecting it to be what it is, obviously, but I was like, oh, she knows something. And then
she makes a phone call.
Right. As soon as this is over, she makes a phone call about this.
This was weird. This place was weird.
It kind of it reminded me of Loki. Remember how they like everything was like old, like old computers, old office.
This was like a whole like the old filing system from the library and shit. I forget what that's called. That they had files and everybody, and it almost seemed like it was only supernat. Like, I didn't know if this was supposed to be all just supernatural.
Yeah, I don't know what. Yeah,
or just old names of New Orleans. Like, it just seemed different than. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just seemed different. Like they and then even they got, because when the black guy, he's obviously special too. So it seemed like it was almost the whole whatever that is supernatural.
Yeah. Yeah. So the mom calls there and she wants to know about her daughter's file. She wants to know who's in charge of her daughter's file. Right. And she gets the person's name, but he's not there. His name is Cyprian Grieve. And she says, well, you tell him he needs to go to the house in New Orleans and see if anything has changed. And then we see more of Rowan, and like, I don't know, this is like my least favorite female character trope. The emotionally closed off, drinks a lot, like really, really smart, good at her job,
but sleeps with
like a lot of random guys. And it's like, I don't particularly like it in male characters either, but for some reason I'm not sure. Like, she's damaged, but like, I don't know. I'm kind of bored with this character trope, but
where are all these women at?
you gotta go find you some 30-year-old ragged looking white women.
Right.
It's like her, Amy Adams, and oh god, what was that show that I hated? And then it got to the end, and I was just like, oh my god, this is the best thing. I can't explain it. Sharp Objects.
Yeah.
I cannot explain it. I was like, this is dumb, because I read the book and enjoyed it, and then I had like all these issues, and then we got to that last episode. I was like, this is amazing.
You know, it threw me off in the podcast I was telling you about. I was listening to that interview with Steven Spielberg. He said he really wanted to direct Mare of Easttown.
Really?
Yeah, and that just kind of like threw me. I was like, what?
Can you imagine how much better it would have been? I'm just kidding. It was good. Really? That's interesting. Mm-hmm. Why? Because of Kate Winslet?
Nah, he just thought it was he said it was really good directed already, but just I guess the story and the setting and everything, he really wanted to do it.
Interesting. Okay. So then Deirdre sneaks to this party. We're back in the past now, Cortland's house. And Cortland is like getting a foot massage while somebody plays with the snake. And I was so confused.
Well, because at first the way it just shows his face and he's like...
He thought he was getting a blowjob.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yes, me too.
And then it shows this guy just fucking play with his toes. I'm like, what the fuck?
And so then, like you said, he like buys this guy. So it's like he knew she was coming.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And it's almost like it was intended to get her. Because everything played out. It's like they intended to get her pregnant.
Yeah, it's kind of like the movie we watched, The Invitation. Mm-hmm. Like, you need to keep having these daughters, right? So, this guy Patrick, and she has sex with him in her uncle's house, and then she wakes up in the morning and he's gone, and she looks out the window and her they're wheeling out a dead body, like covered in a sheet, and she later is convinced that that's Patrick, the guy she had sex with. And the somebody is at the door saying, "Your aunt's here." She says, "Bring your ass downstairs." I was like, "Oh, we've all been here." Were you somewhere you ain't supposed to be? He's like, "Nina, your mama's downstairs." She said, "Bring your ass out to the car." So maybe I've said too much. Sorry, I'm getting some gum. Excuse me. So yeah, they absolutely killed that kid, right?
Yeah.
So what I can't determine is like who is like the aunt did not know, right? Or she
I don't think so because of how they treat her after this. Mm-hmm. I definitely think the uncle and them, like, they want to, because I think the uncle definitely knows they're witches and stuff. Right. Like, I feel like the family line, but for whatever reason, this aunt, they treated her as like holding a demon. And they still, like, the whole time they just treated her as the baby as a demon.
Okay, but wait, okay, we'll get that. Okay, so Mr. Grieve goes to the house in New Orleans, and like he touches the fence, and there's like a cloak up of some kind, right? Because like
yes,
he
and it looked like somebody
a woman, right? Yeah, a woman hanging from the balcony, which at first I was thinking was Deirdre, but then I thought about it. It's probably her mother, because remember there were stories that her mother jumped off the balcony,
right?
And she says, "I don't believe she killed herself." So I'm thinking this, like, it has a history of the witches in this family.
And the guy was standing right there.
And the guy was standing, and then he, like, looked like he could see him.
Yep.
So he calls her, the mother, and he says, he's still here. So I'm assuming he's talking about Lasher.
Yes.
And he's supposed to be confined to this house.
Because of the necklace.
And he goes, "I don't see him, but I can feel him. So if your daughter is 3,000 miles away, she's fine." And she's like, "Well, I need to know what's going to happen to her when you call this number and no one answers," because she knew she was dying. And he says, if that happens, I'll protect her. I'll take care of her. And that's what ends up happening later, right?
Right. Except he's not there, like, to protect her.
Except he's not. Well, you know what I mean.
And he's like, nobody's answering. What do I do?
So then Rowan goes to speak to Lemley, who is the head of the company, the research company, or the genetics company that is doing this research into, like, basically gene research trying to live forever. Right? Mm-hmm. And since this is before, you know, her mom dies, and, like, she puts the whole thing out on the table, and he basically offers her the job. He's like, let me show you where you're going to be working. And then as he's talking to her, this motherfucker starts using the bathroom, like, right in front of her, door open. I was like, ugh.
And didn't wash his hands. He just, like, and then I was waiting the whole time. I was waiting for her to say something because it's like I was waiting for him to, like, touch her or something and her react. But all he did was hand her some shit. And even then, I was like, I wouldn't touch this shit.
Just nasty. So I want to talk about this actor. And something about him seems so familiar. And yeah, but weirdly, like, I don't know anything he's done.
Nah, he was just a sleazeball. He had all these old rich people, and he's like, we're going to live forever.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, he wasn't.
And he's like, all right, if you want your mother in here, you got to kick one of these people off the list. She's like, I ain't doing that shit.
And I thought this was a test.
I did too.
I thought, like, the fact that she turned it down, he was going to be like, okay, I see. But he opened with pissing in front of her. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, no, there's no way this is a good person.
Right.
He was in an episode of The Originals where he played a swarthy vampire. He was also in, his name is Tobias Jelinek. He was also in 6 episodes of Stranger Things, which I don't remember at all, as the lead agent. He was in 1 episode of Atlanta. He played Fells. And 4 episodes of Arrow. He played Boots. Yeah. Anyway, he played the hell out of this role because I wanted to punch him in the face the entire time. But yeah, again, she goes off on this guy and his brain explodes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So she goes to her mom again. This time she goes to her mom again. And her mom completely gaslights her.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you did catch it. Like, the first time she tells her mom about the doctor, that she did it when she was a kid in school.
Oh, yeah, that's right. A little girl. That's right.
Yeah.
Her mom didn't give a shit. She just kept gaslighting her. So back in the past, Deirdre's pregnant. And she believes her aunt killed Patrick.
Right.
Why doesn't she suspect Uncle Cortland at all?
Probably because he wasn't around. He doesn't look like he'd kill anybody anyway.
Are you crazy? He looked sketchy as hell.
He looks sketchy, but he doesn't look like a killer.
So she's all upset because she's pregnant and locked away. And he won't lash her, won't take her away from all of this. And he's like, if I reveal myself to you, you have to promise to accept me.
Because he reveals that the necklace was put on her when she was born.
Mm-hmm.
So she doesn't. And he's like, but I want you to accept me.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically wants her to take the necklace off and then put it back on herself to accept him.
And when he reveals himself, he basically, like, shapeshifts into, like, all kinds of things. And he's like, I am everything. I am everyone.
He's the faceless man.
We don't see what he looks like at the end, though.
No.
Like, she puts the necklace on and then he goes back to
himself.
Looking like the actor, yeah. And she accepts him and then she goes into labor, right?
Yep.
They take the baby immediately and it's Rowan. And it turns out her mom is a Mayfair.
Yep.
So she knew exactly what she was doing. Now, in this scene, Aunt Carlotta did not seem like a terrible witch. She actually seemed really nice. She seemed completely different to me in this scene. When she was like, you have to, like, you know, take care of her and all this stuff. And, like, when she asked the baby's name, I expected her to be like, you name her. But she was like, Deirdre wanted to call her Rowan. Like, I thought that was really sweet.
Right.
I don't know.
So it's like they knew... It's because of the necklace thing and her mother. It's like they knew what the necklace meant.
And they didn't want to subject her to that.
Right. So they knew that I don't know if they knew because they talked about the mother having visions and stuff like that of this other guy, and then she's having visions of this guy. Mm-hmm. So it's like they know this demon. So I don't know if the aunt assumed that the demon had something to do with her pregnancy. But that's kind of like I don't know. It's kind of weird.
I don't know. I know nothing. In present day, the doctor tells Deirdre he's not going to give her those drugs anymore. He's going to pretend to, because Carlisle is watching from the window. Now, is he good? I can't tell.
I think he's just
trying to help, right?
Right. He is. I think he's just in...
Because this woman is being kept drugged and he doesn't understand why.
He doesn't understand what's going on. He's probably from New York or some shit. Doesn't know anything about doesn't know anything about witches and shit like that. Just like doesn't know what's going on here because nobody's told him anything. So
okay,
the supernatural, he doesn't know it or believe it or whatever it is. Where all these people, like, they're just not telling him anything. Because it's basically ultimately his fault because he said, hey, looks like you're taking this necklace off. Let me do it for you.
That's right. That's right.
And then that's what releases.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right. Because it was bruising.
Yeah, she was scratching. Like, she was trying to take it off, but cutting her into...
So that's going to be real interesting. He's like, I'm not giving it to you today. I'm not going to give it to you next time. I'm not going to give it to you anymore. And I was like, uh-oh.
I'm saying who the real you is.
Mm-hmm. And then Greaves, like, we don't, like, I'm guessing it's because of this, right? Because the necklace is off or whatever. Mm-hmm. Because Greaves is like, Lasher is on the move.
Yep.
And he calls the mom, but the mom has already died.
Yep.
And then, all right. This, I'm a little confused. I'm trying to remember exactly what happened here at the end. Rowan, like we mentioned, she lives on a boat, but it's like docked, right? But in this scene, she's in the middle of the ocean, right?
Right.
And she's like adrift.
Yep.
And she wakes up to find that she's adrift. And then I don't remember, what does she see at the end?
She sees him. He was on the boat.
Okay. How did I miss that?
I don't know. He's right in the fucking window. She saw him too. So he found her. And that's how the episode went.
Is he? But he's not like really there, right? Like I'm trying.
I think he's really there.
Like, can he physically do something to her though?
I would assume he could talk to her.
Right, but I mean, like, can he like physically touch her, harm her? I don't think he can.
No, because he's going to want her to get the necklace to bind.
But why? Oh, I have so many questions. They needed 2 episodes.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It didn't.
Because as it stands now, I have questions, but like I'm okay if I never get the answers. Right? Like, it doesn't compel me to like come back next week. I mean, I am, because I'm interested in covering the series, but like, I wish they did too. So. Anyway, let me double check that we have, Tony, where did you go?
I'm right here.
Oh, now you're all quiet. Okay. Okay. No feedback for this. So, yeah, we're going to be covering this every week. We are recording this on Thursday. I think moving forward, we're going to record a bit earlier in the week. Again, we had some issues, but we are back on track. We are cooking with gas. Did you hear that they were saying like gas stoves are responsible for some children getting asthma? No. Just having a gas stove in your house? I need to go read the details. Yeah. So we are not cooking with gas, but we are back on track. Yeah, all the good stuff that we have coming up on the podcast and pretty soon the YouTube channel I mentioned at the start of the show. We'll be covering this weekly over on Patreon. So if you are in it, if this is something that you think is going to be great, like the way I thought Interview with the Vampire was great, and you're watching and want to follow along with us, you can go over to patreon.com/podcastfandom. We have 2 tiers to choose from. One tier has exclusive content, the time travel tier, with shows that only they get, as well as upcoming live video reactions. That's it. Do you have anything to add, Donnie?
Nope.
Okay. Thank you guys for listening. We will talk to you next week.